Well, the news of those potential losses comes on the day that the government has been outlining plans to try and get people back into work. As part of the new measures, job centres are going to be replaced by what the government's calling a national career service, which will allow staff to have more flexibility to help users with £55 million to be spent on the transition. The aim is to tackle economic inactivity with more than 9 million people out of work, a number that's risen significantly since the pandemic. Now, one key element announced by the government is a reform to help people suffering from poor mental health to get back to work. Figures show that 2.8 million people are currently off work due to long-term sickness. Now, in the election campaign, Labour promised to increase employment to 80%. That equates to around 2 million more people getting back into the workforce. Let's speak to Henry Parks from the Institute for Public Policy Research. Henry, thanks so much for making the time to speak to us. I want to talk to you about those plans for Job Centre, but first I wouldn't mind to get your sort of thoughts and reaction to that news about Stellantis and the closure of that Luton plant. Does it tell a broader story, do you think, about sort of business confidence in the economy?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's really disappointing news for people, particularly in that area. I think in terms of the broader assessment of the impact that this has on jobs across the country, I think no. I think we need to not draw too much into this. Of course, it's disappointing for people in that local area. But I would say more broadly, we need to look at wider indicators of the economy, which suggest actually that people are feeling, that there will be kind of greater levels of investment and more jobs being created in the next year.
So maybe not to draw those broader conclusions just yet. I do appreciate that, Henry. So let's talk about these plans for Job Centre. I mean, do they sound familiar to you in many ways?
So, of course, like a lot of different governments have looked at this issue in terms of wanting to support people into work. But the assessment that the government's made, actually, I think it is right to say that employment support, kind of the ways that job centres operate, really must be transformed. And there does need to be a radical shift away from what has been kind of a series of tick box exercises for people engaging with the job centre. And there is a pervasive kind of monitoring, kind of very over the top monitoring culture of the past, and moving towards sort of a genuine engagement with people's barriers to work. And that they could be various, whether that's skills or poor health or whatever else might be a barrier. This kind of larger conversation about how this needs to join up with other branches of support, if you like, in terms of support that's available in the health system, for instance, but also kind of joining up, for instance, what goes on in the job centre and what kind of other local services that are available in people's areas. So a more holistic view, if you like, of how a job centre can support people into work, and kind of a greater emphasis, which is welcome, around kind of the kind of root causes or barriers to employment that people might face.
Yeah, and Henry, you said something quite interesting to our producer. You said that this is going to need a wholesale cultural change at the DWP, the Department of Work and Pensions, to rebuild any trust with claimants that's been eroded through decades of welfare reform. Had it gone too far the other way, the sort of inducement to get back to work, there was far too much stick and not enough carrot?
Yes, I think the balance of those things is probably hasn't been right in recent times, and yes, I think there's kind of been a breakdown of trust between people who access Job Centre Plus and work coaches in some cases. I think there's this kind of pervading sense that work coaches can be sometimes sort of out to get claimants, and of course that won't always be the case. And there are a lot of good work coaches who have done great work, including over the past decade. I think the department needs to do quite a lot of work to kind of get people to actually want to engage with the job centre, engage with work coaches, and kind of what support might be useful in order to move them closer to the labour market. So I think that does require us to think a little bit differently about how job centres operate and how work coaches operate, and also, as was sort of mentioned, for work coaches to have that freedom to sort of treat people as individuals, and to kind of address the particular problems that they face, rather than a sort of cookie cooker approach that has sometimes occurred, whereby everyone is being treated the same and we're not sort of getting to the root causes of why people are out of work in the first place.
And Henry, look, I mean, I guess there's honesty is needed in this kind of conversation, isn't it? And there are people that just don't want to work, and if they don't have to, they won't work. Isn't that the case?
I mean, of course, those people do exist, but they are certainly a minority. And what we do know is that we don't want a system that is entirely designed for a group of people who refuse to engage. We know most people, want to get on in work and they want to sort of move on with their lives, etc. And so we need a system that, by default, treats people with kind of in good faith to engage with kind of the challenges they might have. And not a system that just kind of assumes that everybody is trying to just get something for nothing, as it were.
And that's the sort of system that you think has been in place for what the previous government before?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the assumption that people are trying to get away with, not engaging with the system goes back some time. And again, it's not to say that there shouldn't be some sort of sort of elements of the system whereby if people refuse to engage consistently over a long time, then you might need to do something about that. But by and large, people are very happy to engage. They're happy to engage with support that is meaningful for them, and hopefully there will be more of that on offer under this kind of reformed job centre system.
And Henry, sort of finally, is there an issue with the kind of jobs that are being offered to people? I know that Liz Kendall, as John Craig was pointing out, was really focused on young people, and we've heard from some young people as this story has sort of been reported today that they want jobs that they find fulfilling, they find that give their life some sense of kind of doing something. Is there a difficulty that not everyone, unfortunately, can find a job that they really enjoy doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases, obviously, jobs can be stepping stones, and that's fine in some cases. But what we don't want to be doing is kind of just forcing people to take any job. And of course, the government has wider aims around trying to drive up job quality across the board, including through things like, the employment rights package that is kind of being developed at the moment to kind of drive up the quality of work across the board. So that is a kind of wider goal that the government has.
OK. Henry Parks from the IPPR, really good to speak with you and get your expertise on this, Henry. Appreciate it. Thank you.